Hello, welcome back to Not Overthinking. This is the first episode we're recording in, I think, like 6 weeks.
Has it only been 6 weeks?
According to YouTube, we uploaded the last episode on the 30th of September, and it's been like 6 weeks since then. I thought it was longer. I thought it had been like 2 months.
Oh, it was longer. So we recorded that one when we were still in gas holders.
Yeah, we were still there 30th of September.
Were we?
Maybe not. Maybe we recorded that a week before.
Yeah, I think we'd recorded a week before. And
yeah, so let's say it's been like 2 months. It's been like 2 months.
There's a lot going on.
That is a lot.
Are we actually gonna take this seriously and do it regularly? Because we live together now.
Yeah.
And we have literally a studio where we can just sit and rock up and hit record whenever we feel like
this
it.
is a full setup. This is your fancy studio setup.
So what is it that's causing us to be so bad at like actually doing this?
Well, I think we don't have the calendar event anymore. And also you've been traveling a lot.
Okay.
I think that's the main reason. I think now that we have the setup.
Like how bullish are you on doing this kind of actually doing it regularly?
Yeah, I think it's great when we do it regularly.
Okay, fine.
I think it gets worse when we don't do it regularly.
Yeah, I agree. I've had messages from a bunch of people being, a few people. I've done a few events in real life, and people are always like, "Oh, when's Not Overthinking coming back?"
Yeah.
No one's like, "When's the next episode of Deep Dive?" They just always ask about Well, I guess because Deep Dive is actually regular, unlike this.
Yeah.
So
when's the next framework topic? Productivity framework.
Oh, fine. I think like JavaScript framework. I was like, fine. So we'll figure out a time after this to.
Yeah, I think if we had like a weekly breakfast and Not Overthinking recording, that would be like a good little activity.
I'll be down for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we can do breakfast and Not Overthinking at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be pretty good.
Efficiency. How do you feel about 8 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah, actually, I wake up pretty early these days. I wake up between like 6:30 and 7.
Okay, so we could actually do like Wednesdays at 8 is like our default Not Overthinking time.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, fine. So what has been going on in your life for these last 2 months?
Last 2 months. Mate, where to begin? Just like usual stuff, Just kind of like settling down into married life. Just fairly pedestrian stuff. Done a bit of traveling. We had a company offsite in Costa Rica. That was fun.
So you took the whole company to Costa Rica?
Took the whole company to Costa Rica for a week, 6 days or so.
How was that?
Yeah, it was really good. It was like 50-50 between work stuff and just general team building activities, i.e. just like having fun together as a team, where I think makes a big difference if you're a remote team. Because I think most people don't really, if you're not hanging out with people, you don't necessarily have like a high level of trust. And I think that just kind of like general social interaction builds the sort of trust that keeps the machine well oiled.
Nice. How many people do you have on the team now?
We're like 26 people now.
26?
Yeah. There were 20 of us at the offsite.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so was it like structured fun? Like, let's go for mini golf? And
yeah. It was like activities that were pre-booked and organized.
Okay.
And there was also just some chill time of like chill dinners and just like hanging out on the beach and stuff.
So what was given that you enjoy analyzing social interactions, how would you have analyzed the vibe? Casual dinner versus unstructured time versus like mini golf-esque activities? Yeah,
so in terms of different activities, so we'd usually have like a team dinner in the evenings, where just have a big dinner table or like sometimes separate tables. I think those are good to like force people to sit next to random people that they might not otherwise end up next to. And so it kind of like makes it a big mixing pot. But I think the vibes were probably best on some of the like semi-structured activities. So one of the semi-structured activities was like a boat ride where we were just on this boat for a few hours and then we stopped at some beach and you could just go to the beach, do some snorkeling if you want, just paddle around the boat, jump into the water, that kind of stuff. And so it's structured in the sense of like, hey, we're all on this boat, but it's unstructured in the sense of like, you can sit outside in the boat or inside, or you can go to the beach with a little group, or you can do snorkeling with a little group, and you can just kind of jam and relax. And there's no like expectation. Like at dinner, there's an expectation that like you're talking and you're eating, whereas when you're on the boat or some kind of semi-structured activity, you can just like relax in the presence of other people. And some people will be talking, and some people will just be listening. And yeah, I think everyone really enjoyed that boat trip. And we also saw some really cool animals on the beach, which I think really helped. So yeah, it was just like, I think the boat trip was kind of magical and everyone felt the vibes.
Nice.
Yeah.
So overall worth it?
Yeah, I think so. That's probably the main interesting one-off thing that's happened in the past couple of months.
How long has Causal been running now?
We started in June or July 2019. So I think 3.5 years now.
Damn.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 3.5 years. It's crazy. It's
Mental.
almost 4 years. That's wild.
How does it feel?
I don't know. 4 years feels like a long time. And like, it's hard to imagine what working life was before that. Yeah, it just feels like it's pretty much the only working life.
What did your like normal day-to-day job look like pre-Causal when you worked at Nested?
So I had this day-to-day job in London where I was a data scientist. I loved my colleagues. It was just like so much fun hanging out with people, like the lunch times, random coffees, like working with people and stuff. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But I think I felt the like existential angst of, this doesn't feel like my calling.
Like you're building someone else's dream.
Building someone else's dream, yeah. Like, it's nice not to have the existential. I think it was like on paper, it was probably more surface level fun of like having a good time with your mates, kind of fun, right? I think Causal is less like having a good chill time with your mates, kind of fun. There's not that much of it. There is that sometimes. Like we had a bunch of the team visit London last week, and like.
Do you think that's because you're a remote company?
Yeah, I think honestly being remote, I think that makes such a big difference.
Why are you a remote company?
I think we decided to be kind of remote first. We started like, I don't know, 8 months before the pandemic or something. And we decided to be remote first just because, yeah, I think it felt like a bit of a no-brainer because it was like, oh yeah, I mean, everyone just worked. Lucas and I were like working remotely for chunks of time and a few days of the week. Like we weren't always physically together in London.
Yep.
And it just felt like you have access to more talent in different countries. And so our first hire happened to end up being remote. He kind of reached out and he seemed really good. And so then we just kind of ran with it. And I think it's probably net positive. I think personally, I really like going into an office. So now that I'm living in London full time, I go into the office every day. It's like really nice vibes. It's like at least three or four of us in the office every day. And it's just like so much fun. I just love a commute, love an office. Yeah.
Why do you love a commute?
I think I've always liked just having a bit of separation. I think it's kind of depressing if you don't really leave the house. And I think it's just good to have some like physical separation between where you work. And I think our office is just really nice vibes. We've upgraded it recently. We've got some nice chairs. We've got some artwork, and it makes such a difference, honestly. Like it's a pleasure just like walking in there and you kind of feel peaceful while you're working. Yeah. Whereas I think if you're doing it at home, like, yeah, you can make the space really nice and stuff, but I think it kind of like kills the vibe when you're not working because you kind of associate it with like, oh, I should be working or something. I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair play.
All right, that's
all in all, enjoying life.
Yeah, can't complain.
If you were to, so post-Causal, let's say you start a new company, are you going remote first or like in person, or what's your jam?
Yeah, I think it depends on what the thing is, but yeah, I would seriously consider doing like fully in person.
Nice.
Yeah, because I think definitely there are folks on the team who feel a bit isolated. Like if you're the only person in your function and you're working remotely, then you're kind of just like doing stuff on your own most of the time, and that's just a bit isolating. Whereas like one of our engineers last week was saying like, oh man, like today I was doing like this really like, yeah, basically he had to do some like mind numbing type of repetitive task for a few hours that day. And he was saying that like, if I was at home, that would have been really depressing, but because I was in the office and just like surrounded by people and occasionally chatting, it was just like fun. And so I think that's what you really miss out on.
Yeah, I feel like if I were working remotely and as part of a team, but like only seeing them twice a year or whatever it is, I'd be pretty depressed by that state of affairs because I was really like hanging out with people IRL.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's nice to have the option to, like, I like the freedom and flexibility for myself. And also for other people to be like, oh, hey, if one of the team members wants to go to Costa Rica for like 2 weeks, whatever.
Yeah,
that's fine.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
But I think defaulting to we're all hanging out in the office in person.
Yeah.
There's just so much, it just feels so much better and more fun.
Yeah.
And initially, like we started off remote first, and then like this time last year decided to switch everything to in person. And now we've kind of gone for a bit of a hybrid approach.
Yeah.
Which seems to be working well. I feel kind of bad for the people that aren't in the office. In the sense that like we're quite flexible in like the stuff that we offer. And people seem to like working from home because like, oh, I don't have to commute and I get to be with the family and all that kind of stuff. But I just think being in the office is such a like level up in terms of your own like skills and vibe, and just soaking in the vibe of the other people around you and stuff like that.
The energy is much more motivating.
I guess for like, we have some people on our team that don't really aspire to be like side hustle entrepreneurs and stuff. And for them, it's like, oh, great. Feel free to come to the office whenever you feel like. But for the ones that do aspire a life of a side hustle entrepreneur, I think like there's so little that beats being in the office.
Yeah.
And I know we have a couple of team members that aspire to this life, but choose to not come to the office because they just like the convenience of working from home.
Okay.
And I always think to them, like, you're really shooting yourself in the foot here. Like, why would you not come into the office if you actually aspire to the life of side hustle entrepreneur? But yeah.
What's been going on in your life for the last couple of months? You've done some traveling.
Done some traveling. So we've now fully moved into this place. We now have this podcast room and we have the YouTube room, which is super nice. And it's super handy having like everything just set up to be able to just rock up and hit record. So that's sick. And this place is big enough that team members come in fairly regularly. So Mondays, most people are in. Tuesdays, some people are in. And actually, most days of the week, Angus or Tintin might come around or Tommy might be around. And it's just like great vibes. We are starting to do like a WeWork hybrid-y type thing as well.
So you have a WeWork too? We have
a WeWork too, yeah. Got a sponsorship deal with them. So they've given us 10 free all-access passes for 10 of our team members, the ones who are most likely to use the WeWork.
Dude, sick.
So what I'm imagining is sort of from next week, I kind of want to have a routine where maybe in the morning I film a video and I just be like, I just need to film a video this morning. And then afterwards I pack up the laptop, go to WeWork, walk over to WeWork and then do some writing-y type stuff there. And then do gym afterwards. So I'd like to dabble with that routine. But I spent the last like 10 days in Bali and then was in like, I've been doing a bunch of traveling recently. Kind of bizarre. I went to Tenerife for like 7 days.
Really?
Went to Dubai twice in December. Like, it's all just...
What's all this travel about? Is it work, like speaking at events or something?
Yeah, the two Dubai things and the Bali thing was like speaking at events. And then the Bali thing was like speaking at an event. And they were like, well, if you come speak at the event, we'll like put you up in this fancy resort for the rest of the week.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? That's fine. Why not? And I was also like doing a favor to a friend who very kindly invited me around. And that was like super fun, just doing the whole work remotely from Bali.
Yeah.
Hung out with our mutual Twitter friend, Michael Ashcroft.
Oh, cool.
And I'm just doing the whole work from anywhere, work remotely.
Do you not like having a routine in London? I think I really want to have a great routine in London. I think I've done less traveling than you over the last couple of months, and I feel like my routine's always getting disrupted.
Yeah, I do like having a routine. One thing that's really helped actually for the routine, to an extent, I have a routine while traveling as well. My coach Eric made me do this exercise where it's just like, the whole ideal week.
Oh, okay,
thing.
Yeah.
And now I've actually blocked it in my calendar, recurring indefinitely, and I make changes to the template when I need to.
Yeah.
Let me read you out my
let's hear it. The ideal week.
My ideal week. So let me fast forward to like a random date in 2023 where nothing else will be on. Okay, so essentially every day, 7 to 7:30, wake up, shower and change.
Okay.
Cool. 7:30 to 8, 10 minutes of stretching, coffee and journaling, in theory.
Okay.
I initially was meditation, but then I decided I needed to stretch, so I just replaced it with stretch. And this is good because then it reminds me to do the thing. Then 8 to 9 a.m. is the breakfast block, which is a nice slot where I can have breakfast with someone.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to be like, hey, do you want to come grab a coffee? Come to my place, 8 a.m.
Yeah.
And people are well up for that. Then 9 till 1 is a deep work block with no meetings.
Okay.
Then 1 till 2 is a lunch block. And then 2 to 5 is a more work block, but meetings are allowed some of the days and they're not allowed some of the days.
Yeah.
So every single day, like 9 till 1 is always just like meeting free, deep work block.
Wait, when's the gym?
Gym is 5 till 6:30. It's an exercise block.
Okay.
No meetings, and dinner block.
Every single day?
Every single day.
Do you do that every single day?
I don't go to the gym every single day, but I have made it a rule that I will do some form of exercise every single day.
For 1.5 hours or just at some point in that block?
At some point in that block. Like it's useful to have it as 1.5.
Yeah.
Because with calendar events and stuff, like it just actually blocking out your own time.
Yeah.
And I've literally got exercise block, no meetings, so that my team knows not to book a meeting unless it's absolutely urgent. Then 6:30 to 8, this is game changing. 6:30 to 8, dinner block, no meetings. And that generally ensures that, right, it doesn't ensure it, but it nudges my life towards having dinner at 6:30. Okay. Dinner at 6:30 is an absolute game changer.
Wait, what's so good about that?
Because then dinner is done by 8. Okay. Or if people are over, at the very least 9.
What's so good about that?
Because then I can sleep at like 10.
Oh, okay.
And actually get into bed. But because otherwise, I think just my default way of thinking about dinner is that, like 8 p.m., kind of thing. Like, hey, should we go have dinner with the boys? Cool, yeah, let's go.
then
8
it drags
p.m.
on for a few
8 p.m.
hours.
drags on till 11 p.m.
Yeah.
11 p.m. drags on until like you get home and it's like, oh, can't be bothered
Yeah.
to brush my teeth, etc., and then it completely destroys the next day.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas there's no reason why dinner can't be at 6:30.
I mean, if you're trying to have dinner with friends, 6:30 is probably too early for people.
Oh yeah, I mean, so I've had a lot of friends over at 6:30.
Okay.
So like saying 6:30, people generally
make it work.
arrive by 7.
Yeah, that's
Like
pretty
I've never
good,
had someone to be like, oh, that's too early for me. I need to do 9 p.m. for dinner.
Yeah.
And that means that sort of then the remainder of the time, and then the next event in the calendar is like 10 to 11 p.m. bedtime, no more devices, plus 10 minutes of stretching.
Yeah.
And it just reminds me that, okay, cool, I should actually be heading to bed now. And
Yeah.
like genuinely, I see the calendar notification come up, and I'm like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll go to bed. Like, you know, the intentional version of myself had decided this a couple of months ago, and there's no reason why I shouldn't follow this.
Yeah.
So that's actually been really good.
The 10 p.m. bedtimes are sick, and waking up early. I think just because I usually leave the office around 7. I think because a bunch of the team is in the US, like 7 is when I don't have any more calls after that, unless it's absolutely urgent.
Yeah.
And so I'll usually have some call that's ending at 7, and then I'll head home. Yeah, basically between 7 and 7:30, I'll head home. I'll be home between like 7:30 and 8. Then we'll have dinner. I think my issue right now is that I should do a work sesh post dinner, but right now I view dinner as like the end of the day. And
What do you mean you should do a work session post dinner?
I think it'll be really valuable for like 30 to 60 minutes just to like, you know, wrap up any loose ends from the day. And just like get on top of things. Because I get on top of things in the morning, and then stuff happens during the day, and then I have to deal with it the next morning. And I think just like tying up not like doing a massive amount of work in the evening or starting something net new, but just like tying up loose ends and just reflecting a bit. I think that would actually be useful.
Nice.
So actually, yeah, maybe from this week, I promise you that I will do a 30-minute work sesh post dinner pre-bed
Okay.
as a routine.
Lucy is sitting behind us being like, oh my God. Question.
Yeah.
So I also had previously bought into the idea that like, oh, I have calls with people in the US, therefore like work has to finish like 7, 8, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
To which one of the coaches that I worked with who was in the US was like, no man, like even if you have calls with the US, they can finish by 6.
I don't mind it finishing by 7, to be clear.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that seems fine for me.
Okay. But then you get home by 8, and then it's like dinner is from 8 till like 10. And now you're doing your 30 minutes, 60 minutes of work at 10.
No, 30 minminutes of work.
Okay. It seems like you're...
Yeah, I think dinner at 7:30 would be... So dinner at 7:30, chill for 7:30 to 9:30. Yeah, maybe chill from 7:30 to 9, work from 9 to 9:30, and then chill from 9:30 to 10 and go to bed.
Okay, yeah.
That's actually
seems
right.
reasonable.
Yeah.
Cool. I actually would recommend just, you know, if you just go on Google Calendar, fast forward a while, and actually make this happen so that you see these things in your calendar. And then you can mark some of the slots as free and the other slots, some of the slots as busy.
Yeah.
I think that this has just been like, I've been doing this for the last like month, and it's just been completely like, I feel my life is so much less frantic
Yeah.
because my Calendly link knows what's busy and what's free. The team knows what's busy and what's free. And I treat it as like, you know, unless it's absolutely necessary. 5 p.m. is when I go gym. 6:30 is when you know, and then all the calls and stuff are wrapped up by 5 p.m.
Yeah, I think I do need to figure out gym thing. Actually, my morning routine is like, it's almost really good in the sense that like, I'm basically always up before 7.
Okay.
And then the thing that throws us off is my 30 to 40 minute poos. And look, everyone's going to think, oh my God, why is he always going on about it? Like, this just happens to be a big part of my life. And I'm going to talk about it on the podcast from time to time.
Yeah.
But like,
If the old lady don't like it.
I need to fit in the gym, but I also want to be in the office for 9. Yeah, I think I can do it basically. Like, if I'm up by 7, if I'm done with my poo by 7:30, then I just like get out of the house, go to the gym.
Nah, I don't think this is the right way.
What?
I think what you need to do, right?
Get out of the house before the poo.
I think what you need to do is you need to do a gym sesh after lunch.
No, I just don't see how that's going to work, man.
Why not? At that point, the US people are not awake yet.
No, they are. They start work between 1 to 2 p.m. in the UK.
Okay.
And also like people are in the office, like I think it'll be very disruptive. I think it works. I feel really good if I work out before starting the work day.
Okay.
Like when I did do that, it's like, it just like sets you right.
Right.
So I think if I'm
so you wake up at 7.
out of the house at 7:30, and that's
Okay,
in
but you're
my
not
head.
because you poo.
No, well, I can make sure my poo's done by 7:30 to whatever extent I can actually make that sure. And then I'm out of the house. Yeah, I think while you stay in the house, time just like
Bleeds away.
time bleeds away when you're in the house. Once you're out of the house, you have no choice but to do something useful with your life. You know? All right. So the two things I'm going to try this week, productivity wise, are out of the house at 7:30, go to the gym, and then go to work. And go to the gym, treat myself to breakfast, and then go to work. And 30-minute work session in the evening post dinner, just to tie up loose ends.
Nice.
All right.
So we can check back in next week and see if the action points have been adhered to.
Yeah. Should we move away from productivity?
If you like.
Hate to do it to you.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about what's going down in the world of crypto right now.
Oh, okay. What's going down in the world of crypto?
So, I mean, you and I talked about this earlier, but basically, this guy, Sam Bankman-Fried, also known as SBF, he's, over the last 3 years, he's gone from like nothing to being a multi-billionaire, aged 30 or whatever, however old he is. Now going back to basically nothing and seemingly have committed a ton of fraud and like now is basically like, I don't know, it's unclear where he is right now. But basically the story, the TLDR of the story, as I understand it, is, you know, this guy, you know, smart guy, maths bro somewhat, right? Like starts working, gets a job at a trading firm, does that for a year or two, then is like, okay, what do I really want to do with my life? And then he's just like exploring random stuff, and then he sees a trading opportunity where Bitcoin was priced differently in Japan than it was in the US. And this is like, I don't know, 2017, 2018, something like that. And so he's like, whoa, like the prices are different. I can make money off of this. And then he makes a ton of money off of this.
He makes about 20 million off of this.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And then he decides to start a crypto exchange. So he's basically, there were no like good crypto exchanges for traders, right? Now, if you're the average Joe on the street and you want to buy crypto, you don't want anything fancy. You want to just buy some Bitcoin. You want to buy some Ethereum. You don't want to buy some derivatives or some options or some futures, or, you know, this is the kind of crap like traders care about that normal people don't want to get involved in, / shouldn't get involved in. And so he's like, okay, I made a bunch of money trading this stuff. I'm a trader, and there's no good crypto exchange for traders. And if we make like a really legit crypto exchange focused on like, you know, these really technical savvy people who want to do this fancy stuff, then that sounds like a pretty good business. And so then he started this crypto exchange for traders
Called FTX.
You might have seen it on like stadiums in the US. They've got freaking Tom Brady, who's like one of the most famous American footballers or something.
Yeah.
It's not basketball. It's
No,
football, yeah.
American football, yeah.
Yeah, like he just
NFL,
like,
I think.
yeah. So
They were going to sponsor the YouTube channel as well.
really?
Yeah, but it was for January next year, so like,
Oh, damn.
it's a good thing that didn't happen.
Guess you need a new sponsor for January.
I know. If anyone's interested, please reach out.
Yeah, so I mean, FTX is like everywhere. You've probably heard of this guy or seen him. If you're even like vaguely aware of crypto, you will know about him. And even if you're not, you will have seen this go down in the news. Anyway, so this company FTX starts...
I'm not sure to what extent normal people know what's going on and would have seen this going down in the news. Because I feel like...
Mimi knows what's going on.
Oh, she does? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, okay, fair enough. That's my entire...
Yeah.
entire kind of theory.
And like Mimi probably takes more of an interest in crypto than she otherwise would because she knows we're into it.
Yeah.
But like, I think everyone knows about this.
Okay.
I think it's like one of the top news stories right now. But yeah, basically this guy was like being heralded over the past couple of years as some kind of, you know, he was on the cover of Fortune magazine as like the next Warren Buffett. You know, people are saying all of this stuff about him.
There's a video about him calling him the world's most generous billionaire.
Yeah. His whole shtick is to try and make lots of money to then give it away to charitable causes, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, very effective altruism-y.
Yeah. So he's into that. And yeah, basically he's been kind of painted to be this like absolute god tier genius, like guy who is just like, incredibly productive, driven, smart, savvy, but also really legit. Like a lot of FTX's brand was built around being like, oh, like a crypto exchange that isn't like a shit show, that isn't doing some dodgy stuff behind the scenes.
Yep.
That's like, works with governments and regulators to like do things by the book, all of this kind of stuff. That was the whole brand. And I think that was also the pitch to investors. There is I think I've talked about the Acquired podcast before. I think it's basically the best tech podcast. And they kind of do like sort of deep dives on companies. I think they did an episode about FTX, I don't know, last year at some point, and it's really good. And basically what they mentioned was that the spiel, the investor spiel is basically like, look, everyone else who's started a crypto exchange, like there's a history of crypto exchanges getting started, getting a bunch of traction, and then the person who started it is like committing some kind of fraud, running some kind of Ponzi scheme, stealing some kind of money. Like there's always some like dodgy stuff behind the scenes, and it seems like the only people who have tried to start crypto exchanges before FTX are like sketchy people who are going to do something sketchy, and you just need like a legit guy or gal to start a legit crypto exchange and like not do anything dirty. Yeah.
Okay. So
and like investors love that. Investors love that. They were like, okay, great. Yeah. He's like a very compelling guy. Like when you listen to him talk, it seems like he's got it. And yeah, so basically this company FTX started like 3 to 4 years ago. Probably started around the same time as Causal. Was earlier this year worth something like $30 billion. And it just seemed super legit. It seemed like almost nobody thought that there was anything sketchy going on behind the scenes. And then like last week, literally like 7 or 8 days ago, it came to light that FTX actually doesn't have people, like basically people put money into this exchange to trade on it and just keep it sitting around. And then a bunch of people wanted to withdraw their money from FTX on one Sunday, I think a week ago. And it turned out they didn't have the money. Like people couldn't withdraw their money because it was no longer just sitting around like it should have been, like FTX had promised people. Like it's like putting your money in a bank account and not being able to withdraw it. There are nuanced differences between FTX and a bank account, but like broadly, you expect to be able to withdraw your money from a bank account. And maybe if it's a huge amount of money, you just give your bank like a heads up or something. But like a bunch of people wanted to withdraw their money 1 week ago and they couldn't do it. And then FTX basically filed for bankruptcy a couple of days ago, basically saying like, look, we actually don't have any money. And the millions of people who had put their money into this thing are now probably not going to get their money back. The rest of the crypto industry now looks even more sketchy than it used to, because now like this is yet another exchange that has like done some dodgy stuff behind the scenes. And initially I thought like, okay, look, no one is evil here, right? This is a guy, he started this business, it like went incredibly well. Like I'm sure there are some like gray area type of things where, you might still be like a thoughtful and reasonable and wanting to do the right thing, and you kind of do this gray area thing, and then you're on this like slippery slope of like, oh, now you have to do this other thing to make up for it, etc., etc. And so I thought like, okay, look, everyone's painting this guy out to be some like evil, calculating villain whose plan it was all along to like do some sketchy stuff just to try and maximize how much money he makes, ostensibly so he can give it away. And I kind of thought, man, like people are being harsh. Like, he's just like a young guy. He's like doing this thing. He probably like accidentally did something wrong and then had to like double down, etc. Turns out he was actually, it does seem very calculated from the start. He'd built a backdoor into the exchange, a backdoor into FTX that basically let him move money around completely freely without this being tracked anywhere, without it being tracked in their like accounting system, without any of their auditors knowing about it, without any of the employees knowing about it. And so basically behind the scenes, from like pretty early on, it seems, this guy could just like go in, take money in the system, move it somewhere else. And it seems like he was moving a lot of that money into his personal trading company that basically trades money to make more money. And so, yeah, that's kind of the situation. He'd been siphoning users' money to then trade on it and make more money for himself. And seems like he flew too close to the sun and now they're bankrupt. So that's kind of the whole saga. And it's just been unfolding on Twitter basically in real time over the past week.
It's been pretty sick, to be honest.
Dude.
Like every time I log onto Twitter, I'm just like, all right, let's just look at my top 3 algorithmic tweets. I'm just like, all right, cool. Yep. There's more stuff.
Yeah, Twitter has not been this good in forever, pretty much. I'm like absolutely glued to the thing. It's genuinely harder to get work done. Yeah, Twitter's just been unbelievable. And like, it kind of makes you think, like, what would happen if Twitter didn't exist? We just like wouldn't have, like, there would be no like town square where everyone can just gather and like talk about the stuff, make jokes about it. People can like leak stuff to this. There's a Twitter account called Autism Capital, which now has over 100,000 followers. Like if Twitter didn't exist, there's just no forum for everyone to have this kind of public conversation that really everyone can like watch from the sidelines and partake in if they want to. And this one Twitter account, Autism Capital, has become the sort of de facto leaker of information now, where like employees of FTX will anonymously send information, like send internal emails and internal Slack messages to Autism Capital on Twitter, and then it'll like publish these things, and like, yeah, it's just like crazy. Yeah, it's like it's an incredible drama that's unfolding. I mean, there are also, let's not forget that $20+ billion of normal people, for the most part's money, is also just like gone. And, what Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, there's a good clip of them that's circulating from like, I think it's from like 2 or 3 years ago, where someone asked, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, really old guys who've been in the investing game, made a lot of money, like investing more traditionally in companies. They're very like anti-crypto. And like 3 years ago, they were at their like annual conference. Someone asked them, what do you think of crypto or something? And Warren Buffett basically said, look, like there's no actual value being created here. What it seems like is people who are smart and conniving see this as an opportunity to make a bunch of money by, starting something like an exchange. And then people who are less smart and less conniving and less savvy about these things, they see all of their neighbors getting rich off of this stuff. And so then they also pile into this stuff because their neighbor's getting rich off of it and they don't want to miss out. And then what happens is that the person who started the thing runs off with the money, pretty much. That's what Warren Buffett described. I think that's exactly what's gone on, where normal, unsuspecting people like put their money into this stuff, put their money into this exchange, think like, get sold on the crypto Kool-Aid. And now like millions of people have lost in total like $20 billion on this stuff. And this is just like broadly normal people who's putting their like life savings into this stuff. So
it's pretty mental.
It's insane. Yeah.
So you had a lot of money in crypto, which you've just now liquidated. What's going on there?
Look, I don't want to create more fun around crypto. Okay. Look, I'll say briefly that I have recently, as in last night, sold all of my crypto. I do plan to buy back in. I just think it'll go down again before it goes back up.
Trying to time the market, are we?
Yes.
How does Lucia feel about you buying back in when it goes back down? Have you guys talked about this?
Yeah, we make joint financial decisions. So, we'll sit. We'll do the technical analysis.
Nice. The astrology.
Yeah, so I'm not in crypto anymore, but I'm closely following it and we'll see what happens. But yeah, the whole thing's just been insane. But I think it's made me appreciate the value of Twitter, of like, if this thing didn't exist, like where would these things
I don't know. I feel like this conversation would, like, if Twitter didn't exist, it would have happened on like a Facebook page or like a LinkedIn thing or like an Instagram page. Like there are enough of these platforms out there.
On what Facebook page would everyone be like looking at this stuff in real time?
On any kind of public
I think the difference is like Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. You can't really have like lots of people contributing. It'll, Autism Capital might have a Facebook page, and every few hours they leak some image and some text posts.
Thousands of people in the comments being like,
and there's people in the comments, but like you can't engage. Like you or I would not engage with those. Like you can't just scroll through the comments and understand what's going on. You can't, you can't post a really funny meme in the comments and it like rises to the top of the replies. Like it's not really a town square in that sense. It's like a distribution.
Broadcast.
Yeah, it's a distribution channel for like one-to-many broadcasts.
Yeah.
But Twitter generally feels democratic.
One of the things I found interesting was how, the backstory from this was like, apparently a couple of weeks ago, CZ, the founder of Binance, and Sam had like a bit of a beef on Twitter. Yeah. And like Sam said something snarky to CZ, and then 2 weeks later, CZ says that, hey, we're pulling all of money out of this thing. And it seems like they're not talking to each other in the WhatsApp DMs. They're talking to each other on Twitter and like on Twitter publicly.
Yeah,
and that's having
a fight. Yeah,
insane consequences.
Yeah.
And it's like, especially with Elon getting like super involved on Twitter these days. Like there are a few people, a few creators I know who have replied to Elon things, and then he's replied to them, and it's like you actually can access the richest person in the world. By replying to one of their tweets. Which is just pretty cool.
Yeah, it's sick. I love a bit of Twitter.
So that's what's going on these days. It's all.
How closely have you been following it?
I was following it a little bit when I was in Bali. This was like Binance had just released a tweet saying that they were gonna bail out FTX.
Yeah.
And I got on a plane, and then 24 hours later, I got off the plane. I was like, "Wait, what the hell's going on?" Because in that time, Binance had done their due diligence, and then subsequently pulled out of the deal, and all of the Sam Bankman-Fried is evil stuff started to come about. So I've been vaguely following it since then. The YouTube channel CoffeeZilla is a good like source for kind of summarizing all this in the form of video.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting. Like there's part of me that's like, it's like following any kind of spectacle in the news.
Yeah.
Where in a previous life I would have been like, don't watch the news. It's not useful for you.
Yeah.
It's not good for your life.
Yeah.
Now that I feel like over time I'm going to become more interested in the news, because I feel like when you know something about an industry, and if you have the background context, the news is super interesting.
Yeah.
If I knew something about like the conflict in the Middle East, then any news coming out of that area would be super interesting, like it is to my mates who know stuff about that conflict.
Yeah.
So I feel like I wonder if this is why old people are more likely to follow the news than young people, because they just have more knowledge about the world. Yeah. And for them, that's like the news is actually relevant. Yeah. Because it's like interesting, because you can fit what's happening in the news on your tree of knowledge of what the world is like.
Yeah.
So I've kind of slowly been following it, but trying not to let it be too like, oh my God, like drama. Because it's essentially the equivalent to celeb gossip. Just celeb gossip that affects.
It's like a reality TV show.
Yeah, tens of thousands of people and their life savings and stuff.
Yeah, I do worry about that. Yeah. I think I am to some extent like reveling in like a fall from grace. And it doesn't seem like a good thing to do. Yeah,
like I don't like to think ill of people generally.
Yeah.
And so
I don't think I'm not saying they're thinking ill of SBF. I don't actually care that SBF has been downfalled. I think it's more
that there's this construct of this like almost like the arc. The arc is interesting.
Yeah, it's just like a crazy arc.
This is kind of what like so there's a YouTube channel called Sunny V2. Have you come across him?
No.
He does these sort of like sort of mini documentaries, sort of the rise and fall of Ryan Higger, the rise and fall of Person X or YouTuber X, the rise and fall of David Dobrik, the rise and fall of Mr. B, whatever that looks like.
Okay.
And those always get like millions of views because people love it to be like, how did they rise to fame and like what did they do?
Yeah.
And then there's like, there's often a story. I'm not saying this is the case in Ryan Higger's case, but there often seems to be a story of like they got successful and then they let it get to their head.
Yeah.
It becomes very like, I think it's easy for people to have a bit of a self-congratulatory type thing about this. It's like I wonder if that kind of stuff makes people who have not yet done the whole quote becoming successful thing makes them feel good, because it's like poking fun at someone who has ascended and then been brought down, as it were.
Yeah, maybe there's some of that.
Yeah, why are you so into it?
I think I'm into it because it's like quite close to the communities that I'm a part of.
Yeah.
For example, FTX owns 1% of Causal.
Oh, hello. It's out there.
We'll see what happens to that 1%.
Like get clawed back.
Like, yeah, Causal will probably be on some papers somewhere when they like figure out all the assets that FTX owns. But yeah,
I don't know. I think it's just like any kind of drama. Following it when it's like, for example, drama around people at university. It's like, oh my God, this person's like, whatever. It's interesting if you know the people.
Yeah,
it's not so interesting if they're in a different school or whatever. It's like, who cares?
Yeah, I think because I'm close to the industry, I think that makes it like more interesting. It's just like an insane story as well. Okay, I think I can safely say that like this guy falling from grace, like I don't really have any Schadenfreude about like, oh yeah, like
He got what was coming to
He
him.
got what was coming to him. Like, I knew he was a bad guy. I thought he was a sick guy. Like, I was like a fanboy like last year or something. Like, I listened to this podcast about him. I was like, oh man, this guy is like sick.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, I don't think that's what's going on with me at least. But it does feel, I think it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I think like the reason I'm kind of interested is it's less about like the individual. Like, I think I've been seeing a lot of stuff being like, oh my god, this guy's evil. Like I called it, or like, you know, you can just tell, you know, all this kind of stuff. I think what's more interesting to me, it's almost like why reading about the rise and fall of civilizations is interesting. It's not really about like what did Marcus Aurelius do to whatever. It's just about like how did this institution rise and how did this institution fall?
Yeah.
And just sort of the systemic things that happen there. It'd be like, oh crap, like I guess you could just kind of write a backdoor into your own software and that would be that would result in this. And I guess like, you know, there's a parallel with you know, banks do in fact not have 100% liquidity. They do lend the money that users put into banks to other things. But, you know, this is what happened in 2008. Since then, there's been loads of regulation around it, like in particular around banks having to have a certain amount of extra liquidity and all the regulation and all this kind of stuff. And that's not a thing in crypto. And in a way, what's interesting about it is it's a very dramatic culmination of a lot of years of background. Around people who are talking about how crypto is like the future because it's decentralized, and yet this centralized exchange has become a bad actor.
Yeah, I think this one is also just like particularly interesting. A, because like I definitely did not see it coming, and B, it just seems like no one else saw it coming either. And like looking back now, like people are posting tweets about like how it should have been so obvious. Like this guy's based in the Bahamas. He's like sponsoring sports arenas, you know, all of this kind of stuff. Like the people, the like 15, 20 people that like build this thing are all basically like mates, and they all like have been in relationships with each other and all this kind of stuff. They're all like living in like a couple of houses in the Bahamas. It's like, yeah, this, you know, there should have been some red flags. It's kind of a weird setup.
Yeah.
But I think everyone just kind of like bought into the narrative. And it was a great one. Yeah.
The other interesting thing I'm finding is that it's almost like Twitter is full of like mini like investigator type people.
Yeah.
And like there's always a danger with this. Like when was it, the Boston Marathon bombing happened? Suddenly everyone on Twitter was just like trying to find.
I think Reddit was the one.
Oh, Reddit, that kind of thing. And there's always a risk of, you know, man on the street vigilantism. Being like, it must be this person, and then suddenly like people are going after this person's family, and this person just happened to be in the vicinity or whatever. Yeah. But what's interesting about it is that like the leaked emails, and like, it's like you're following a story step by step in a platform that is not controlled. Like, it's not that the Wall Street Journal is deciding what things to leak. Yeah. It's that this random Twitter account is, which is run by random anonymous people, and it's just kind of cool that all of this stuff is happening. Yeah, exactly. And you read people's like theories about it. And I think the meme culture around it is also really funny. Like, it's just like the amount of funny stuff that's come out of this is just insane. Anyway, the saga is continuing to unfold. We'll see what happens. So let's say I'm loving Twitter right now. Let's say someone's listening to this and they're like, "Damn, I'm still not on Twitter." Yeah. Well, what would be your sales pitch at this point? Because in a way, the thing that I always say to people about Twitter is like, people, I think a normal person still thinks Twitter is a place where you get like news and outrage, and like that's just the vibe of kind of Twitter for normal people. Yeah. Oh, it's just a bunch of people arguing or something. Yeah, a bunch of people arguing, that kind of stuff. And the sales pitch I always give to people for Twitter is that, hey, your Twitter feed can actually just be really cool. It can just be kind of people that you genuinely want to hear from. To be honest, I think I don't know what Twitter is like outside of tech and tech adjacent circles. It's probably quite different. I have no idea like what the Twitter experience would be like in other, like if I was a doctor who wasn't into tech. And there's a lot of like med Twitter type. Yeah, like, I have no idea what med Twitter would be like. Like it's probably different. It's less funny. Yeah, people are very careful about what they say. Yeah, I just think like tech and finance Twitter is just like absolutely hilarious. Like if you happen to be in these spaces or interested in these spaces, it's just like this really funny community. You can keep up to date on the like latest stuff basically in real time. Like the stuff that you find, the stuff that the official news and media will be showing is all like out of date. Like no one who's following this stuff is like reading the BBC to like get the latest on the FTX thing, right? You're following Autism Capital and a bunch of other anonymous Twitter accounts. And so, yeah, I think if you're interested in tech and finance, like it's basically just like the first place that things will break.
and you can see the discussions around. There's also just really interesting discussions around them. You learn a bunch of stuff, and it's just really, really funny. And there's like a cool sense of community of everyone like following this thing together and laughing at the jokes and stuff like that. If you're not interested in tech or finance, like, I don't know, it's probably, I don't know how interesting Twitter is. I don't think I know any like non-tech or finance people who actually browse Twitter, or adjacent who like browse Twitter regularly.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, so I think that's probably like been the big thing that's on my mind in the past week or so.
All the Twitter drama.
Yeah.
Nice. I guess one thing that's worth talking about is, what is this podcast? I feel like we've not yet sat down and then thought, like, since March of 2019, like, what the hell are we actually doing here? Like, what's the point? And in a way, I kind of like the All In podcast.
Yeah.
We'll just sort of chat about what's going on.
Yeah, by default, they'll talk about current affairs as like the general agenda. And then it's just like a bunch of guys hanging out and joking around and talking about random things. I guess we don't really have the current affairs thing.
Yeah.
I guess the current affairs is just whatever happens to be going on in our lives.
Yeah. We're like, so my calendar this week has been pretty busy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't think either of us like follow current affairs. Like, if this FTX stuff wasn't going down, we wouldn't be talking about it.
No, exactly.
But like, we don't follow just general politics or something.
Yeah. I think like with the All In guys, they all seem to have like a specific opinion about specific things because they follow it and are like very well versed in that.
I'd say on this podcast, it's more like, if the FTX thing wasn't happening, it would just be like, just our general hot takes on stuff, like based on books and tweets that we read and like random stuff. I think it's just like, it's atemporal hot takes.
Nice. So affairs rather than current affairs. Yeah. That should be the name.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's basically the pod.
I have a hot take from something I read recently.
Yeah.
I have been reading an interesting book. I've been reading a bunch of interesting books recently. So when I was in Bali, I was a guest of a company called Safety Wing. Okay. Which is like, they do like health insurance for digital nomads. Yeah. But the interesting bit was like the people that I was with, who I met on Twitter actually. One of the people, her name is Lauren. She was on my other podcast talking about like nomadism and building a country on the internet and this kind of stuff. But it's like her and her husband Jesse and this other guy Chance. They were all like arts type people rather than tech bro type people. Okay. And knew so much about like history and like culture and like society and things. Yeah. Where like the conversations at the dinner table, I was just like, oh, hold on. Like, what does that mean? What does that mean? Yeah. It was like, they just sort of be explaining stuff to me. And I was like, damn, like, I actually want to become more cultured to be able to understand the world more. Yeah. And so I got a few book recommendations. I even posted on Twitter being like, hey, what should I read to become more well-versed with world history? Yeah. And people recommended a bunch of stuff. In particular, loads of people recommended Sapiens. Okay, yeah. And so sort of 10 years later, 10 years too late, I've decided to start listening to Sapiens. And it's really good. It's good? It's like absolutely sick. Okay. I'm like halfway through on the audiobook at the moment. Yeah. And it's just sick. And it's like actually quite funny at times as well. And I find myself just sort of bursting out laughing. Yeah. I started listening to it when I was on the plane. One chapter at a time, and I just feel like I can like feel myself leveling up and getting smarter, as it were. Leveling up and getting smarter. Yeah, I don't like the word getting smarter, but it's like I know lots of random bits about the world. Yeah, and like I would visit a place and like go to a museum, and I was in Santorini a few months ago, and it's like something about the Minoan civilization. Yeah, what the hell is the Minoan civilization? Yeah. It's like I knew Rome was a thing. Marcus Aurelius, like Stoics, like all of the things that I know are like just scattered. Yeah. But what Sapiens does is it puts it on a timeline. Yeah, that's and a sense of like, oh, okay, right. So 70,000 years ago, that's when the cognitive revolution started, and then 10,000 years ago was when the agricultural revolution started. And I was like, okay, cool, all this kind of happened. And then X number of years ago, it's like these three big things happened, and like money was invented, and religion was a thing, and like weaponry became a thing, and so all of a sudden, blah blah blah. And it's just sort of a very, the tagline: a brief history of humanity or humankind. It's super interesting because now I'm like, oh, I actually really want to go to a museum and understand like what was going on in this part of the world and how it fits onto the timeline. Yeah. So for anyone who's not read Sapiens, would 100% recommend it. The Sapiens recommendation. I know. Dropping in 2022. Exactly. Love it. Like I genuinely, I actually had no idea it was a book about history until I started reading it. Oh, okay. Because I just like been hearing it recommended so often. I was just like, oh, it's just going to be. Did you own it?
I've owned it, but I haven't read
No,
it.
I hadn't even owned it.
Oh, okay.
I was so ahead of the curve. I was like, nah,
Yeah.
this is just
You were
not interesting.
Sapiens from the beginning. Yeah.
Although on that note, there's another book, which I'm sure you've come across. Have you heard of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Yeah, of course I have, mate.
Have you read it?
No, obviously
mate.
not.
Absolutely sick.
It's really good.
It's really, 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 really
People
good.
like take the piss out of it these days.
I know.
I mean, it's like a meme book in the same way. Like I made a meme about Sapiens last year.
yes.
They got loads of retweets. I haven't read the book.
Yeah.
Okay, so Seven Habits
is also
good.
yeah. It's like sold 30 million copies. It's been around for like multiple decades.
It's like Dale Carnegie's like How to Win
Yeah.
Friends and Influence People,
which is also kind of a bit of a meme book.
Yeah, that's
but
a
it's
meme
actually
book,
quite
yeah.
good as well. But 7 Habits is sick. I started reading 7 Habits and I was like, oh my god, like
But but
this is actually really good.
I think stuff like the 7 Habits thing, like all of that stuff will have made its way into the productivity wisdom
it really hasn't.
of the time.
It really hasn't.
It hasn't?
No, it hasn't. Like I think
What? What's the stuff then?
so.
What's the alpha, bro?
It's basically an emotional take on productivity, which is weird. Like it sort of
Isn't that what your book's meant to be about?
no, mine is more about like energy and like good vibes and things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mine's more about the energy and vibes.
Yeah. Whereas 7 Habits is more about the
Sound
emotions
like a
and stuff.
spiritual healer, bro.
Yeah. And the 7 habits are like so simple. Like habit number 1, be proactive. And it's like, okay, cool, yeah. I've read the tweet thread. I don't need to read the book.
Yeah.
But then the book is like, it's like diving into the book itself. It's just like super interesting.
Yeah.
And the guy is like,
Okay, but so one of the reasons I tend not to read these books is because I think the format is basically like, look, you'll have the 7 habits. One might be proactive, and then it'll be like, oh, here's some studies that actually show that this is really good. That's why you should do it. It's not like that.
It's not like that at all.
Phew.
Have you come across a website called Common Cog?
Yeah.
Cedric.
Yeah, I follow this guy.
Yeah. He's really good.
Yeah. He seems I like
So he has like this theory of like different types of books. Have you come across this?
the trees and the branches.
Yeah, there's
or
like
something,
tree books and there's like branch books.
Yeah, trunk. I think he calls them trunk and branches.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, so there's the tree book kind of thing. So something like Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman, classic tree book, and that it's just like large amount of like very very dense like
lots
50
of
years worth
concepts,
of stuff summarized into this book, which is like loads and loads of different concepts. Like give you like a whole tree.
Yeah.
That you can then hang other things off. And then you have a book like Range by David Epstein, which is about one key idea, which is that generalists thrive in a world of specialists.
Okay.
And the whole book is trying to justify that idea and back it up with examples and studies and all that kind of stuff. So that's like a branch book, as he calls it. And 7 Habits is very much a tree book.
Oh, really?
In that it's not like, hey, be proactive. Here's a study that shows why. It's much more interesting because it's like this guy has like life experience, unlike a lot of people in their 20s and 30s writing productivity books. And a lot of the stuff is like, he uses like examples with his kids and how, and also like in the workplace and how the same thing applies. Like,
yeah.
And he's like super vulnerable about it as well. He was like, I was having a conversation with my 7-year-old daughter the other day, and here's what went down, and blah 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 blah. And I realized that I didn't do this thing, and had I done this thing, the conversation would have gone differently. And I'm just like, bloody hell, this is really good.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
I'll get it.
Habit number 5 is one that I kind of skipped to habit number 5 because this is something that I definitely struggle with. And I read like an interview with Stephen Covey, and I think he's dead now, but like he did an interview at one point where they asked him, what habit do you struggle with most? And he said habit number 5. And habit number 5 is very simple. It's seek first to understand and then be understood. And I feel like in almost any kind of problem I've ever had in my life, it has been a failure to run the model of seek first to understand and then be understood.
Just like jump to action.
Just jump to a particular conclusion or jump to a particular, like someone's saying something and it's like, just assume what they mean, but actually taking a step back and being like, no, actually, I really want to understand what's going on here. Like what are they thinking? And the whole empathetic communication and stuff. And he kind of goes into all of that. And it's just sort of within those few pages of that chapter is like, what I've seen in like entire books around like how to communicate empathetically, how to understand other people's emotions, how to navigate when people are in an emotional state rather than a logical state, and stuff like that. And it's just really well done, like through like just in a nice writing, through some amount of humor and his own personal examples. And I'm like, oh, this is sick. I'm thinking of doing like a video series of like one video for each of the 7 habits because there's so much density packed into each of the chapters.
Yeah.
It was weird. So I think about a year ago, I contacted one of our old like deans of the medical school because I knew he was super into education and stuff, and I had a few specific questions about stuff for book research. And I was describing some of the stuff in the book to him, and he was like, "Oh yeah, like that's what Stephen Covey says in 7 Habits."
Yeah.
I was like, "Wait, what?" And then blah, blah, blah. Half an hour later, he was like, oh yeah, that's another one of the 7 habits. And I was like, oh, bloody hell. Like, I thought I was coming to novel conclusions here.
Yeah.
And yet, like, you know, this is
How
all
come you
been
haven't
said.
read it? Because it's way more famous than a bunch of the other productivity books that you've read.
Yeah. But similarly, I've read a bunch of books that are way less famous than Sapiens. It was precisely like...
But if you're writing a productivity book, like surely you'd read the big one, the big hitters.
You would think so. But I sort of assumed that it was... It's like everything would have made its way up to the main... up the trees into the mainstream.
Yeah.
And like the title as well, it just sounds a bit like old school, a bit like IBM manual kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so I always just kind of dismissed it, but it's actually really good. So if anyone has heard of the 7 Habits and has been dismissing it for similar reasons, thinking like this is a book for like old dudes managing a team at IBM, then like actually I'd recommend reading it because it's actually really good.
If you are an old dude who manages a team at IBM,
then you should also read it.
Well, yeah, and sorry if I was disparaging.
Yes, I do apologize.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, mate. Who'd have thought like these popular books are actually good?
Okay, so I'll buy 7 Habits. It feels like the kind of thing you can like skim and then dig deeper when you want to.
Yeah, it's definitely a book I want to read more than once.
Yeah.
Or at least kind of find particular chapters here and there.
Yeah. Nice.
There's another book I've been reading which is a lot more modern, as it were.
Yeah.
It's called Unscripted, like the guide to escaping the rat race.
Oh, okay, yeah. Is it good?
It is also good. It's not like needle moving because it's basically about extolling the virtues of starting your own business and how to do it.
Yeah.
Which is not particularly needle moving for me, but it's interesting because a lot of people, like I'm increasingly hearing on the grapevine from people stuff like various friends like and family of ours have come to me and be like, hey, you know, Ali, I know you're into this investing stuff. You know, I've got a bit of money, I want to invest it. Like,
what should I do? Yeah.
You know, what should I do? Or like, you know, I'd really like to make this passive income thing. Like, you know, do I need? But I don't want to become a YouTuber. It's like, what do I do? I've always been like. There actually isn't like I would love to give someone a playbook to be like, look, you don't like your job, you want to, or maybe you do, and you just want to be able to make $3,000 a month on the side. Yeah. Like, how do you actually freaking make $3,000 a month on the side? Yeah. Like, this is non-trivial.
It wasn't that the point of the 4-hour work week, or like was that proposing one very specific way to do it?
It was sort of the point of the 4-hour work week. It wasn't. In a way, 4-hour work week is a kind of old now, and the writing style kind of puts a lot of people off.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, because it was like 16 years old, and his writing at the time was quite like brash and American and stuff. Apologies for disparaging any Americans in the audience. Yeah. But it's also quite like high level. It doesn't give like specific step-by-step-y type of stuff. It's almost too abstract. Whereas there's another book, The Millionaire Fastlane by MJ DeMarco, who also wrote Unscripted, which actually is, I think it's the best book I've ever read around like this sort of the playbook to like in this genre.
Like such a scam. Any title would like I will make you a millionaire. Like no, when we said these, I will make you.
Yeah, no, the title sounds like a total scam, but it's actually a genuinely sick book, and it actually is this sort of more of a step-by-step playbook to, and a bit more actionable around how to do this sort of stuff. Yeah. And then Unscripted is basically that, but told through a story. It's like the story of this married couple. The woman's a nurse. Her name's Sam. The guy, I can't remember his name. He's like an insurance broker or something, and they're really struggling. They've got a kid on the way, and they're struggling to make ends meet. And they, you know, the first few years of their married life, they are falling into the classic consumerism trap of like financing the car and trying to get the white picket fence and all that kind of stuff while living less than paycheck to paycheck while being 50K in debt, all that kind of stuff.
Sure, yeah.
And then they're like, okay, cool, enough is enough. Like we need to save the pennies, and it's all about saving. And they're like, cool, you know, I've read a bunch of books about this, and I need to save everything that I earn and put it into low cost index funds. And then, you know, by the time we're 65, honey, we'll be rich, kind of thing. And what MJ basically argues is that this is, you know, it's not. This is still the rat race. Like you can convince yourself you've broken free from the consumerism rat race, but you've ended up in the sort of saving and scrounging pennies rat race, where you're hoping that you can then be somewhat rich by the time you're 65, before you while you can't even enjoy the wealth that you do have. And his whole like model is in all these books is, look, if you actually want to make $3,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $5,000 a month, or whatever that thing is, the only way to do it really is to start your own business. And even just saying that feels kind of weird, because I know a lot of people that I know who are like, quote, normal people who haven't been drinking the tech finance entrepreneurship Kool-Aid
Yeah.
for decades. Like all my medic friends, if you said to them, if you want to get rich, the way to do it is to start your own business.
Yeah.
They'd be like, wait, what? Like it's such a black box.
Yeah. Like,
even
I'm not a
to this
business
day,
person.
I'm not a business person. Like I don't have a business degree. Like, okay, I'm going to get an MBA or like whatever the thoughts people have around this. And the book is interesting because it actually gives more of a step-by-step guide. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, I would love to be able to make a sort of follow this step-by-step playbook. People emailing me being like, oh, what's the best business to start?
That would be a good YouTube video. If you just make like the canonical 30-minute like video on this thing, that'd be huge.
Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Like
I want to be able to
blog post.
Yeah, anytime someone emails me being like, what business idea should I start? Or how do I invest my money? I'm like, just watch this video, read these 3 books, and then come back to me. And then 99% of people won't bother reading the books and like, okay, whatever. But 1% of them might do, and then they'll do the thing.
Nice. So you recommend 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Sapiens, and Unscripted.
I think, I would recommend the 3 of them for different sorts of, it depends on what someone's looking for.
I think I'll read 7 Habits. That sounds pretty good for me. I think other people will probably read
also, have you read Sapiens yet?
I haven't read Sapiens.
Yeah, I think you would also really enjoy that.
The audiobook.
Yeah, the audiobook is good.
Okay, yeah, I'm down. I feel like I bought an audiobook recently by someone's recommendation, so I need to listen to that first. Oh yeah, mate, before we wrap up, one book recommendation. I don't know if I said this on the previous pod. I recently listened to the audiobook of My Body by Emily Ratajkowski.
Oh yeah, you mentioned it. Is it
amazing, incredible stuff.
Really?
Yeah, dude, it's absolutely gripping. I mean, it's super depressing, I'll be clear, and like probably quite triggering for like people who've had like traumatic experiences around like assault and things like that. But it's just like a really intimate look into just kind of like her life story. And it's kind of like the audiobook is actually read by her. The thing is actually like written by her.
All right.
Yeah, it's just like, so it's you basically never get such an intimate look into someone's like psyche and thought processes and feelings. Like you just don't get that very often. And yeah, it's just like absolutely gripping. It's not very long, but yeah, I think it's just like super gripping. Pretty bleak and depressing, but like, I was just like glued to it for a couple of days.
Nice. On that note, another thing you might enjoy is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
What's that?
It's a fiction audiobook.
Is that the sequel to 7 Habits of Highly
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That was good.
One husband was proactive. One husband. Okay, wait, so what is it? Victor Hugo? The Les Mis guy?
No, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Oh, right. Sorry, okay.
No, it's really good. It's like a fiction book that gives you an insight into. So basically the plot summary, without any spoilers, is it is a book that's written by a journalist who is writing a story about the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Evelyn Hugo is like some huge Hollywood actress who's been in Hollywood since the 1950s and is now in her like 70s or 80s or whatever. And it's about like all of the things that she does / has to do to get ahead in the industry, and you get a real kind of insight into her psyche and stuff. I think it'll touch on similar themes to My Body, I suspect.
Okay, yeah.
But it's super, super, super interesting and very riveting. And yeah, it's great. Apparently went viral on TikTok, which is why so many people have.
Wait, if I listen to that, what's better out of that and Sapiens? Is it on Audible?
I mean, Sapiens is about the history of humanity. This is a fiction book about like a Hollywood actress.
Yeah, I think I want like an Audible fiction book.
Yeah, it's on Audible. It's good on Audible.
Okay, so I'll get that on Audible.
Nice.
All right, mate, I've done some banger. I'm.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm shadow banned. I'm shadow. There's no other explanation for it.
Yeah.
I've done some banger tweets and they haven't got much traction. Yeah, I mean, my tweets will require too much context, so I haven't got any tweet insights. Let me see if I've got any book highlight insights. Let's see what Readwise can come up with. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. This is kind of out there, but I'm gonna read this out. So
here we go.
This is by an Islamic philosopher called Al-Ghazali, who was alive, I don't know, like 1,000 years ago or something. He has like various books. He has a book called On Vigilance and Self-Examination.
Nice.
About like, just like controlling the self and things like this.
I see.
And this highlight is actually something that was on my mind. I remember in 2018, because I remember like trying to explain this to someone. I think they just like, I think I probably did a bad job. But I'll read out the highlight. Al-Ghazali says, there is no good in an ephemeral good. On the contrary, an ephemeral evil is better than an ephemeral good, because once the ephemeral evil ceases, an enduring joy comes with the interruption, the evil having ended. Whereas the ephemeral good, once interrupted, becomes continual regret once the good ends. That is why it is said, the greatest distress for me is in joy. Certain it will turn is he who possesses it. When he's talking about good and evil, he's talking about like more of like an inward thing, not like it's better for you to be ephemerally evil to not like to like do something, some temporary evil thing to someone else than a temporary good thing. But yeah, I think it's just like so true. Like I think the satisfaction and the good that comes from stopping to do a bad thing that you're doing is like way better than the temporary good feeling of something. And basically, a few years ago, I was in Bali with some friends on like a little working trip, and they have Milo there. They have like loads, Milo the drink, and they have the like boxes of Milo there. And I was like hooked on this. I was having like 10 of these a day or something. We just like bought Milo in bulk. And I remember I was like, someone was like, "Oh yeah, why don't you like take a bunch home in your suitcase because we don't get them in England." And this was when I was kind of formulating my theory of measure. I was basically saying, I think back then I was like, actually kind of on this beat a bit of like, look, there's no, I basically had this like mindset of, there's no point like trying to like achieve something like a very temporary good. Like, great, I'll take like 2 Milos home with me. I'll enjoy 2 more Milos, and then I'll be gutted that I don't have any more Milos at home. Like, and I was trying to basically explain that, look, there's a zero measure. Like it's not like if there was a way I could get like 1 Milo a week at home, it's no longer zero measure. But if I can get like 2 Milos to have like on day 1 when I get back home, and then no more Milos, what is actually the point of that? It's just completely pointless, and I'll just feel bad afterwards. And so, yeah, I thought this was I think I read this a while ago now, probably like a few weeks ago, but that's something I'm contemplating.
I feel like we should almost figure out like what is the way we should have like set pieces in the podcast episode.
Yeah.
Like start off with life updates and then being like, and then sort of have, all right, this week, let's pick a random highlight from Readwise and just chat about it.
Yeah.
I have a random highlight. It's from a book called Beyond Wealth by Alexander Green.
Okay.
Taoist philosophy requires an open mind and considerable reflection to be fully appreciated. It reminds us, for instance, that we may be so busy trying to get rich, change the world, or improve ourselves that we miss life's essence. Verse 8 says, "Fill your bowl to the brim and it will spill. Keep sharpening your knife and it will blunt. Chase after money and security and your heart will never unclench. Care about people's approval and you will be their prisoner. Do your work and then step back. The only path to serenity." Do your work, then step back.
Nice.
Yeah.
I like it.
I like it.
All right. I think that's a good note to end on.
Good note to end on.
Thanks everyone for listening. We'll do these weekly now on Wednesday mornings.
Yep.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.